All right. It's Mike's Minutes, Mike and Abbott here. Hey, everybody. Interesting. Have you, I don't know, when I was growing up, we heard this thing called, you're going to get your mouth washed out with soap. If you say that word again, if I hear you say that word, you're going to get your mouth washed out. Well, you know, this goes back to how can something so small have so much power? And that is the power of the tongue. And I'll just give you a little intro into this. So the title is, of course, Wash Your Mouth Out. And recently I was given a book or recommended a book by some folks, and you know, they were talking about, you know, how good it was and all that. So I went ahead and ordered the book. The audio. I didn't actually get the physical book. So a lot of times what I do now is I'll listen to a book, and if it's got a lot of good stuff in it, stuff that I want to go back to, then I will get the physical book, because I like to have a physical book. I can go back and underline, take notes, add stuff, you know, to it. Let me get a little swig of water. And anyway, so I started yesterday. When I do my warm-ups at the gym, if I'm on a elliptical treadmill, I'll put in my earplugs and I'll listen to an audiobook. So I started listening to the book, and I probably got about, I got through the foreword, the intro, I guess it was, and maybe half of the first chapter. And this book was so loaded with, now understand, this is what we call a personal development book, where somebody is, you know, giving you insights into something that may have worked in their life, and they're going to help you be more productive or more whatever. So personal development. And after about, like I said, by the time I got to the end of about the middle part of the first chapter, the profanity, and the words that were used were so that I just, you know, I can't listen to it. I'm not going to listen to it. And it was interesting because one of the things this author was talking about is the power of the conscious and subconscious mind, and what you put into it and all that. And I'm thinking to myself, okay, you know the power that what we're putting in our mind has on who we are. But yet you're purposely inserting words that have absolutely no use, in my opinion, in making your point any more profound than it would be. If it's a good point, to me, you don't have to add a obscene word in order to make the point any better. If it's a good point, the point itself is going to carry the weight, not some profane word. So how could something, the tongue, have so much power? How can something so small have so much power? And basically, I listened to a person, and these were the 5 things that they gave to the power of the tongue. The power to condemn. Okay, the power to condemn. The power to control. The power to corrupt. The primitiveness to combat, and then the perfidy of the tongue. That means the hypocrisy, the divisiveness, the deception, all of these things. But so these were the 5 areas that this person went through in talking about the tongue and why it's so important in controlling the tongue. And so, for our purposes, based on where I've started this, is to talk about the power to corrupt. And I don't know where I got this quote, or whether it's actually a quote or just something that had written down at some point. But it talks about the influencers in a culture. And it talks about, basically it says this: I don't care who makes the laws, okay? I don't care who your lawmakers are. Show me those that control the arts, and I can predict the future of the nation. Okay, so I want to start with that. And you think about the influences in our culture now, and of course with the way media, of course, as we're doing here, anybody can make themselves into an expert or can say basically anything pretty much. And post it up and get heard and get seen, and just depending on what you're talking about, it can gain a lot of traction pretty quick. But I want to think back, who have been the influencers over the last 50, 60, really since, I say predominantly since the 60s up to now. Of course, there's Hollywood, the things that go on in Hollywood. As I've always heard it said, whatever happens on the West Coast will be at the East Coast in 3 to 5 years. So whatever they're doing over there, you can expect it to go all the way over to the East Coast, and those things that are adopted on the West Coast and Hollywood will be adopted by the culture. TV, of course, goes along with that. And then you also have music, and books, the written words, and of course now you add in 24-hour around-the-clock, minute-by-minute news on whatever device you want to have it, whatever station you watch, whatever news station you watch, the influences of the commentators, their agenda, and their worldview. Of course, YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, Snapchat, and it goes on and on, all the different things now that have influences and have control in terms of culture. And for the purpose of this, we know that throughout human history, there's typically a path that a culture or a nation will take, and before that nation crumbles and becomes nothing but a byword in history. And part of that has to do with language. And when you see the language moving away and moving down, and language now it's like you couldn't tell. It used to be that if you went, my father was a prison guard, a correctional officer, okay, and he did that, and he carried me to the prison numerous times just to experience some of what was going on in the prison. And of course, and he prepared me. He said, now you're going to hear and see things that are not going to be very pretty. And of course, one of the first things that you notice is the filth of the language. It was just profanity, obscenities after obscenities, profane. Well, now there's no difference in what used to be what I would classify as prison language and our language. You could not tell the difference. Like, I went to a mall not too long ago, and I'm sitting there, and it just happened to be some 10, 11, 12-year-old kids over here talking. And unfortunately, I could hear what they were saying. And I was like, I cannot believe the profanity, the obscenities, the absolute filth that was coming out of the mouths of these kids. But all you have to do is go back to this about the influencers, the Hollywood, the TV, the music. And if you listen, and I do this from time to time for my Bible study, when I teach Bible studies, I'll take and say, okay, do you know, especially when I'm teaching adults that have young kids, I said, do you know what your kids are listening to? Do you know the lyrics? Because I know depending on what you listen to, you can hardly understand the words, and there's so much slang in there now that it's a whole new language. But one of the things, if you take and you print out the lyrics to some of the top songs in the marketplace today, it will mess your head up to think that your children are listening to this garbage. And I know I sound fuddy-duddy, you know, because, you know, back in my day it was, you can't listen to the Beatles or Elvis Presley. But now, I mean, the words are so profane, so obscene, and you're going, your kids, so when I listen to those 10, 11, 12-year-old kids using that same language, I shouldn't be surprised, because if they pull up beside you in their cars, or you're in the gas station and they happen to be pumping gas with the windows rolled down and the music cranked as loud as they can get it, you're going to hear what they are listening to, and you can understand what's happening to our language. And all of that, to, you know, when it has the power to corrupt. So, you know, your words, you know, have power. Not only the words that you speak to yourself, the words that you speak out loud to yourself have a dramatic impact on you. It has the power, remember, to condemn, control, corrupt, okay? It has that power. You know, so the words that you're speaking to yourself have a power behind it. You will live up to the words that you speak. Your heart is a reflection of the words that you speak. What's in your heart will ultimately express itself. All right, so this power of corruption, we see this, and you know, and then you give these words to others, and you keep saying them over and over. And now we're in the process in our culture today where we're taking words that once meant one thing, and now they're totally different. They're changing everything based on changing the definition and meanings of words. It's fluid, okay, very fluid. So you look at the influences that are taking place around us now. In the I started with personal development, the entrepreneurship, business, the influencers out there now, and one of them is this guy. His first name is Gary. Last name starts with a V. And really, I attribute a lot of what I'm seeing right now when it comes to the personal development, the business, entrepreneurial type stuff. And this is going across the board. It's when you listen to this individual, because everybody was talking about this guy and how what he was saying was so powerful, and it's just wow. And look at where he's come from and what he's done and what he's doing, and now he has a whole influence over a whole marketplace that is very, very, very powerful. And so I again, like the recommendation to listen to this book I was listening to, recommendations to listen to this guy. So somebody sent me a link, and I click on the link, and bam, here come those same filthy, disgusting words that, 20, 30 years ago, you would never have been a person of influence with those words. But now, those words are embraced. There's no such thing as washing your mouth out with soap because of the words that you spoke. The words that you speak now can be as filthy and as obnoxious and as hurtful as you can make them out to be. And so this person is having greater and greater influence, not only on folks that are speaking in the personal development world as coaches. I can go on almost any YouTube broadcast, and you're going to hear profanity. You're going to hear words that are just, to me, there's no point to them. They have no useful point other than to, just irritate me. That's me. I may be a fuddy-duddy. I don't know what you want to call me. But those words are offensive and do add nothing to the content. But it's so salacious, I guess. It just pulls people into it. So I'm listening to this guy, and after just a few minutes, I'm like, I can't even get his point for the fact that he's throwing out so many foul words. And so I don't listen to him. I will not listen to it. And I'm not going to read it in a book. The minute I start seeing these words that have up until now, recently, were totally offensive in our culture, And when you look, and unfortunately most people don't look at the root meanings of words. So one of the most popular words in our culture is why we would dare even use it in this Me Too movement and all these things going on. Why we would use this word, I have no clue, other than it's sensational and it's just, and I don't know. But anyway, the point is, for me, is that each of us, the power of the words we use are so significant. And unfortunately, we take those words and we don't give them the weight that we should. You look at you look at right now, like, for instance, the suicide rate is almost doubling. I mean, it's astronomical, the amount of suicides that are taking place in our culture among young people. The numbers are staggering. And one of the things they talk about is the influences of social media and how bullying has been taken to a whole new level. Because, we're on a screen and, we feel like we can say and do things and get away with it. But here's the thing, and this is what's happening in our culture, is that those same kids that are bullying, that are using the words that they write in Facebook, or what they say on Facebook, or what they say on Snapchat, whatever they're saying it. Those words not only are having control and corruption and condemnation and that primitiveness to combat. That means savage, okay? Moving back to where we are becoming more savage in our speech, where it's more primitive, it is. All you have to do is listen and watch what people are writing and the words they're using, and you go, man, how do we get to this place where we are so free to use these offensive, obnoxious words? And the way we use words to be so deceitful, hypocritical, two-sided, all these things that are taking place in our culture, and we just don't get how powerful the tongue is. The words that we're speaking to ourselves, the words that we are speaking to others, the words that we're speaking to our children, the words that we're speaking to our leaders and that our leaders are speaking to us, the words that we see and hear throughout the nations right now, it just tells you where we're at. When we accept these things as normal communication between humans, when we get to that point where we have got such gutter speak, and we no longer are offended by it, we're no longer disturbed by it. To me, when some of these words, especially, and this is just me, and you may hate me for this, you may. But for me, when I hear certain words being spoken, coming out of the mouth of a woman, it's like a dagger into my heart, because I know that you can tell when a culture is beginning to lose it is when the women, the most compassionate, they have, their nature is that of compassion and nurturing, and when you start seeing, to me, the women in your culture using the profanities that are freely thrown about now, you're in trouble. And then, to me, we're in trouble as a culture when we think that words that just a few years ago were like I said, like I started with this, that time I took the visit into that prison with my father as he showed me around. He was, of course, giving me a very valuable lesson You're gonna have choices in your life, and some of those choices could put you in this situation. It's up to you. You're gonna make those choices on your own. That if you make certain decisions, you're gonna be in this place. Well, he's giving me this lesson, and I'm sitting there as I'm walking through this particular area, and I'm hearing the words that these guys are speaking, and speaking to each other, and yelling them out to me, and then you look at some of the behaviors that were also taking place in the prison that the guards had to put up with on a regular basis. You go, okay, you can kind of go, well, when you've got this level of language, when this is your language, your actions are going to live up or go down to that level. And so as our speech, even, I can't believe, even in the personal development area, where those same words, that same trash talk is being used in personal development to try and make a point, you're going to see the result of that. You're sitting there talking about the power of words and the power of the conscious and subconscious mind, and at the same time you're throwing filth. At the same time, that is that perfidy of the tongue. And we need to, if you are using media, if you have, and we all are a person of influence in our circle of influence, you have the ability to change the direction. You have the ability to change the language, the tone, simply by what you say and the actions that you take. So the whole point of this is I hope that each of us, whoever may be watching this, understands the power of the tongue. And it has the power of both life and death. What are you speaking to yourself, and what are you speaking to others? Is it lifting up? Is it edifying? Is it kind? Or is it hate-filled, ugly, and something that tears down? Make a choice. Be aware that words matter. Words matter. And I just hope we get back to having that place where we can hear our grandparents and our parents saying, I'm going to wash your mouth out with soap, boy. If I hear that word again. Yes, I experienced that. And it was a powerful lesson. So anyway, folks, thanks for listening to my ranting and raving today, but it was just something I just felt like I needed to say. I hope we can get back to the words that have true, significant meaning and not just garbage. And that's my hope for all of us in our culture. Thanks for tuning in. I appreciate your time. I know how valuable it is. If you think somebody needs to hear this message, this ranting, then please share. Sharing is caring. Somebody may pull something from some of the words that were said today, and it may change their direction. And that's all I can hope for. Anyway, thanks again, everybody. Mike's Minutes over and out. See you again soon. Bye-bye.